Welcome to the BPD Bunch. I'm your host, Sandy, and today we're doing something different. If you're a regular viewer of our show, then you know we normally feature a panel of people to have in-depth discussions about all things BPD. And for this unique mini-sode, you'll be learning a valuable interpersonal effectiveness skill from Lena. She's not only someone with lived experience of BPD, but also a practicing DBT therapist. Lena will be teaching you the Dear Man skill to effectively make requests of other people, set limits or boundaries, or say no to someone. You ready? Take it away, Lena.
To kind of summarize Dear Man is a script that we use in DBT. Typically, we use Dear Man when we're trying to get an objective met. So we're setting like a pretty clear limit with someone or making a request of someone that's like a pretty sort of like open and shut situation. It stands for describe, express, assert, reinforce is like the script part, the Dear. And then man is sort of how we go about it. So it stands for being mindful, acting confident or appearing confident, and negotiating. Okay, so just to kind of go over the Dear part. Dear is this is what you actually say when you're trying to make a request of someone or set a limit. So what you do is you describe the situation, and I always say describe it in really objective terms that the other person can't argue with. So we don't want to typically come out the gate and be like, you are being such a jerk, because then people are going to shut down and they're not going to hear you. I'll use the example of, because I work from home, I often end up doing a lot of the chores around the house because I'm just here and my partner works like really long hours, gets home and doesn't do a lot. And so a while back, made a request of him to take on something like doing the dishes. That's like my least favorite thing. So describing the situation in this example would be something like describing what I just said, where there's not necessarily any judgment in it. There's not necessarily like any sort of blaming of, oh, it's because you're lazy or whatever. I just want to describe the situation as it is. I work from home, so I notice that I end up cleaning a lot of the things around the house, like pretty straightforward. He's not going to shut down hearing them. He's going to be open to hearing the rest, right? The express part is where we express how we feel about it. And again, trying to really stay in the I, like, this is my experience of it, I'm feeling this way about it. And again, wanting not to necessarily attack or judge, but just, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all the things I have to do to maintain the house, right? The assert part is where we actually make the request. And we use our other skills to figure out like what's a reasonable request, what's like within our wise mind to request of this person, and typically sort of trying to stick with like a very, again, like straightforward sort of concrete request, which in this situation is a little bit easier because it's around like one specific thing. It's not necessarily like a theme in our relationship. So the assert would just be something like, I would really appreciate if you would wash the dishes every day. Like pretty, just like clear cut, one sentence, that's it. Then the reinforce is where you basically are reinforcing the other person for doing this thing for you. So you're saying how this will help you, how this will help the relationship, whatever it is, right? So in our situation, I would say something like, that would help me feel a little less overwhelmed and show to me that you also care about maintaining our house, right? So try to keep it pretty like short and sweet and simple, right? Saying enough that you're getting your point across without saying so much that the other person gets lost in like, what's the point here? And or like feels attacked, right? By like any judgments or sort of just like blaming, stuff like that. The man is how we go about sort of the response and how we are actually setting that limit or making that request. So being mindful is where we're staying focused on our goal, right? So if my partner were to come back and say, oh, well, you do this, that, and and try to sort of like deflect, I would stay focused on my goal here is really to make this request for him to do this one thing. And so I'm going to stay focused on that and not get into this conflict about all the things either of us do or don't do around the house and who's this and that, right? So we also use something that we call broken record, which is no matter what the other person says in response to your request or your limit, you say, I would just really appreciate it if you would do this for me. Sort of like repeating, this is what I need, right? Because for those of us who struggle with people pleasing and struggle with setting these boundaries, it's really easy if someone tries to deflect us off of our request, we're really happy to follow along. And broken record is, okay, this is what we're talking about. I'm staying focused. With appearing confident, you don't necessarily have to feel confident, but try to do things that show that you feel confident in your request, right? So, whatever that looks like for you, it's going to be really different culturally and personally, whatever, whatever makes you feel like you're appearing confident. When you're making this request or setting this limit, do that. So for me, it's, sitting calmly and making sure like I'm looking at my partner when I'm talking and not like looking down and trying to avoid him, something like that, right? And then the negotiate is the part that, sort of depending on the request or the limit that we're expressing, we might need to negotiate. And again, it's going to depend. There are going to be some situations where you're going in and being like, I can't negotiate on this. This is a boundary. This is not a thing I'm willing to be flexible around. And there are some situations where, maybe I need to be willing to give to get, as we say, like maybe I need to be willing to like hear what my partner's thoughts are, how we can sort of work around this. I just want to say quickly also, in the situations where it's a more difficult interaction, maybe you're setting a limit with a person that doesn't typically respond well to your limits or boundaries, or it's again like one of the situations where I said like you feel like you can't negotiate on. When doing the sort of reinforce part or the negotiate part, however you want to look at it, I like to say if the person is like trying to deflect or trying to divert you from your goal repeatedly, isn't responding to your boundary, we use the sort of like turntables approach of, well, what do you think I should do here, right? Sort of like turning it back on the other person instead of them continuing to put you in the situation where you're having to defend your own boundary, right? Sometimes other people don't remember our boundaries or don't know how to respond to them or they struggle with them. And so, we don't want to get into this situation where we're constantly having to defend it, right? Sometimes it's helpful to just be like, well, what do you think is our solution here? How can we best approach this or whatever to like make that other person also be a part in like building this relationship? Because boundaries are ways that we like maintain relationships. The other person also has to take responsibility for that too.
Thank you everyone so much for watching. We hope you got a nugget of wisdom to take with you on your journey. If these types of skill episodes are something that you get value out of, please let us know in the comments. We are absolutely happy to make more of these if that would be of use to you. So let us know down below. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that you do not miss a single episode. And we'll see you next time.